I see a lot of people coming in. Good.
I just want to double check that my audio is good because my computer just crashed right before the meeting. Yeah.
As it should, right before the meeting. But
It
yes,
had
you're
to,
audible.
yeah.
All right. Then do you think we could start or wait another minute?
I think we could start.
All right. Let me begin. Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much really for joining us today. I think it's really exciting for us as part of the international student branch within the Student Advisory Committee to see such a great turnout. We got a lot of RSVPs and I'm hoping that more people are gonna come in as we go into this meeting. And especially to see our international graduate students and scholars who are thinking ahead about their future careers getting into this. Because I think as international trainees, many of us, like we spend a lot of years immersed in academia. And then when we step back and start thinking about a career beyond it, especially in biotech or pharma, sometimes it can feel like a little bit out of reach. But I guess today's session is really meant to open that up because we have excellent panelists here today with us who have like a diverse set of career experiences, both in biotech, pharma, and more. And I hope you'll all take full advantage of like this opportunity to ask them all the questions that you have. And we will also go through some of those questions that you all have entered in your RSVP form so that we discuss those as we go. And I suppose before we begin, I did want to share that one tiny aspect about the career panel itself that while our panelists will have a great, like lots of stories and experiences to share with us, and while transitioning from an international student to an employee, a work visa is very important or falls as a crucial point within this. The visa situation is always very volatile and keeps on changing. I hope that we can take with a bit of salt that each of our panelists' experiences will be good to know, but may differ from what you may experience later on. Just wanted to put it out there. And so we can frame a lot of job search questions around the work visa situation. So that might be more useful for us as strategies of how to apply for a job, what to look for. And so I guess with that, I'm really honored to welcome both of our panelists, Dr. Meitsu and Shaurya Jain. Thank you so much for taking out time for this panel. And can I ask first May and then Shaurya to introduce yourselves so that we can get on with the discussion?
Yes, no problem. Hello, everyone. My full name is Mei Zhu, but you can call me May. And thank you again for inviting us to be here today. And about my background, so currently I serve as the Associate Director at the Center for Career Engagement in WashU, helping our PhD and postdoc for their career and professional development. Before that, I have been in this role for a little bit more than 1.5 years. Before that, I was originally from China, so definitely an international scholar. And I did my PhD in WashU, specifically in the DBBS plant and microbial bioscience program. And I graduated about 12 years ago. And after that, I also did a postdoc and then worked in industry, small companies, big corporations, and also startup space. So mainly in the ag tech space, but gradually transitioned to more like people management, data science, client management type of role. I'm very passionate for my current role because I remember when I was a PhD student, I kind of struggled with professional development. I can share more story later, but in a nutshell, I really understand your challenge. And I feel like this is a very meaningful work to do. That's why, after working in industry for more than 10 years, now I'm coming back to support our students. And that's about it. Shira, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, May. And thank you again for having both May and I for this panel. Um, uh, I have, well, I guess my journey in the United States began when I first came here from India for my master's degree. That was in Boston at Northeastern University. And Northeastern had this fantastic co-op program, which directly helped me transition to the industry through both co-op and like I also got the chance to do summer internships during my master's degree. So the co-op position, luckily for me, also converted to a full-time position. And the company that I was working for was a small startup that focused on developing small molecule drugs, or mostly they were focused on cancer. And the way they were developing these drugs was through structure-based drug discovery, and they used modeling and simulation. And that was honestly like the first time I heard about NVIDIA, which probably not a lot of people talked about, but essentially that company, they used chips from NVIDIA for their own supercomputer, and they used those modeling and simulations to make small molecule drugs. So that was a very like experience in that company was quite multidisciplinary, while my role was more geared towards like protein sciences and performing biochemical assays. I worked with like many cross-functional teams, people who were biophysicists, biochemists, and working on completely like dry lab, working on modeling and simulations. From there on, I decided to move to the West Coast, and I worked in South San Francisco at Denali Therapeutics. And Denali is a company that works on developing large molecule therapies for that can cross the blood-brain barrier. And again, this experience was very cross-functional, and I got to work with cell biologists, neurobiologists, and um, obviously there was animal research involved. And I guess both of these experiences really gave me a very wide array of like experiences. I got to learn this huge set of like diverse techniques, and that truly helped me understand what I want in my career, which is why I decided that that is actually like I really am interested in understanding cell biology, and which is why I decided that I wanted to pursue a PhD. And now I'm here at UT Southwestern in Dallas, and I'm a first year grad student.
All right, thank you so much. So we obviously had a few questions that came in as part of the form that people filled in, but there's interesting questions coming up in the chat as well. So before I move on to the first question, actually segueing from your introduction, Shaurya, I think, and May, I'm curious about the experiences between big company and small startup in terms of how your roles and daily work might be different, from Wendy in the chat. How would you like to answer that?
I I completely forgot. Before we begin this, I had a few questions for our audience, just so that, I both May and I, we can understand what is it that the audience experience has been already, and like this is just for us to understand like what is the group like. So I just wanted to like if people are okay using just like your like the reactions in the chat, I would be really it would be really helpful if you could like tell me if there are people here. I'm guessing these are all just international students. Are there any
Yes.
non-international students here at all? Okay.
I think it's all international
Okay.
students.
All international
That was
students.
our targeted audience. We
I
don't
see.
know if we
Okay.
have.
Okay. And then have any of you ever had any sort of internship experience outside of academia, or like it doesn't have to be core research work. It could be something else that you may have tried in like science communication or management or something like that. If you have, just like feel free to react.
Yeah, raise a hand or put in chat.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe not.
I guess
But
we'll warm up the audience.
yeah,
But yeah.
it's I feel like I'm a student too, and I've been to similar panels, and it seems like knowing what the audience really has experienced before is helpful. So okay, we do have one person, and then
Yeah, and we have reactions coming in. But
okay.
yeah.
Has anyone actually had experience working outside of their home country before? Because I know these are a lot of international students, but maybe in a different country you've had work. Okay, we do have a few people. And then are are all of you truly interested in pursuing a career outside of academia, or just like don't know yet, trying to figure it out? Okay. All right, that's good to know. All right, we can answer accordingly. Yeah.
Cool. Cool.
Good.
Yeah, I think there are more. I love the interaction here. I saw some more questions coming up. I'm happy to share my experience for the first question. And, Shoya, you can add up more. Feel free to do that later on as well. So in terms of the differences between big company and small startup, I do have experience in both. And there are a lot of differences, but I just want to highlight maybe one. Uh, Based on my personal experience as well as talking to many people, um, in big companies you have way more opportunities to learn, to interact with others, to have so-called like career development opportunities. What I mean by that, for example, when you work in a big companies, usually for PhD and postdoc, you may start as, for example, a scientist. And even though you are in a particular department, you have opportunity to work with other departments in that organization, other teams in that organizations. So a lot of great opportunity to network with others, to learn from others. And big companies also have a lot of resources to support you to grow your career. Maybe after a few years, there are other openings that are open for you to get promotion or get another job, things like that. They also invest money for you to go to professional conferences. So a lot of resources like that. So great opportunity to learn. And for small startups, you may not have that many people to work with, that many learning opportunities, but it's a great place to drive changes because you work with, startup work with a very few people. You may work very closely with CEOs, CTOs. You may potentially, help make some of the big decisions, and you may wear multiple hats. You may do some product development as a scientist, but maybe you also work with clients and to sell your product, things like that. So there are great opportunities for you to make changes. So my suggestion overall, there are PhDs or postdoc or graduate students who go to startup immediately. But kind of usually I would suggest students maybe go to big companies if possible to learn as much as possible and then go to a startup to really apply what you have learned and make big changes. And maybe you can start your own company as well. So again, there could be many other differences we can talk about, but those are one major thing I want to point out.
Yeah, I guess I do agree with May, although I do want to define what a small company is versus what a large company is. So, small companies, at least what I understand, is like any company that has less than 100 people working in it. And usually they are called like startup stage or things like they like are very like in their initial stages of funding. Larger companies would be usually like 400 to 500 people, and then there's like big pharma, which is more than 1,000 people working in the company at like multiple locations. So I do want to say I may not agree with you completely that startups don't give you the opportunity to learn a lot. I started my career in a startup, and I think because of the fact that it was a very small company, I had to wear multiple hats, and I got to do a lot of different things. So it's obviously very subjective. Like some companies, definitely they have limited resources at a smaller startup stage, so they may not be able to afford like maybe getting you to conferences or like these networking events. But in terms of learning skills, they may be a good place to be in. So yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess this
yeah.
has been the real highlight for us that we have such diverse, experienced panelists, and I love to see this. But
Yeah,
yes.
I just want to kind of clarify one thing. What when I mean like big companies, you have a lot of opportunities to learn is to kind of learn from others by talking to other people or by utilizing existing resources in the big companies. For example, they may have symposium, things like that. But in small companies, you may not be able to learn from others that much. Still, you can learn from your CEO, your other team members in the startup, but you may by wearing multiple hats, by working on many projects, is a great opportunity for you to learn. And that for that part, I have no doubts. Yeah. So for that part, I'm sharing the same opinion with you.
All right. I'll move on to one of the questions that we had from the forum. Let me see. Is my slide advancing? Yes. Would any of you, oh, sorry, I thought I heard somebody, but would any of you want to answer one of these questions or both these questions? I know that you have covered a bit about what your experience in industry has been, but maybe some of the highlights of what those experiences are. What would you say for somebody who's not sure yet about like academia versus industry? What were the pros and cons? Maybe more pros and and then decide.
I can maybe answer this. So again, uh, the things that I really liked about the industry was that uh, y- there were several departments and you were all working towards the same goal. So that part of working on the same project together and like there wasn't like a competition to prove anything, if you know what I mean, but it was more like you're all working on the same project and then everyone is doing their part on proving uh, the hypothesis or trying to figure out a solution to a problem. So that was something I really liked, and being part of those projects, you get to learn so much. You get to hear about a lot of things. But again, on the flip side, it's also the thing where because companies can be really large and you like people are working on several projects at the same time, depending on the company, they might restrict the like your access to such meetings where like project discussions are actually done, where they're making decisions, depending on uh what your role is in the project. So it becomes a little like need to know basis, and you may not always be the most influential in deciding the path of the project. So that was one thing I personally felt that, having transparency or access to like why a certain decision was made, that was limited. Um, Other than that, I would say, I mean, there are certain things, like obviously because industry is more business oriented, sometimes, your projects get scrapped overnight. So, you put in maybe 6 to 10 months of work, more than that, and then the very next day you come in and they're like, okay, maybe this is not a potential, it does not have good potential commercial value, so we're gonna scrap this project. So it like initially when I began in my career in the industry, that was something that really bothered me. But over time, I think I developed thick skin, and now you understand why those decisions are made.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree with that. And to add a little more is not only industry projects are kind of business oriented, they also more applied. You know, I think when we work in academic setting, not all of the questions are very applied. And in industry, many times, your research, your work has direct impact in the world, and that also draws many people to be interested in this type of work. And in terms of kind of the dynamics, or for people's interaction, I think it could be also really dependent on the company or the team you are in. I agree with you. Sometimes you are not getting involved in all of the meetings, but there do have many opportunities where there are a lot of interactions among the colleagues. For example, when I worked in a small size company, it's not a startup, it's like a small size company. We actually do a kind of like what we call it's kind of a check-in meeting, like almost every day in the morning, where we talk about how things are going, what are you going to work on, how we could support each other. So a lot of interactions. And when I worked in Bayer, which is a big corporation, because I'm working in kind of like more the innovation side, again, that needs a lot of alignment, a lot of collaborations. So I do remember I probably spend like 50% of my time just sitting meetings. So a lot of interaction, need a lot of alignment. Um, yeah, you need to kind of influence others to get their buy-in and also make them willing to collaborate with you. So that's another very important skill we see working in industry. But I would say, like in industry, you have plenty of opportunity to work on very challenging questions, make innovations. Um, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. That was really insightful. And also, I guess moving from that to a lot of our, when we had a poll about what part of this transition slash career journey are people more interested in? And so the most interest was obviously in job search and strategies. And I think a good link to that question, I guess, would be Xinyi, if I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Her question in the chat was, do you think it'll be very helpful to have internships during the end of your PhD before graduating? Because she's not sure how realistic this is for international students and wanted to hear your experience or what you've heard from others regarding internships that could help for jobs.
Yeah. I can share a couple of things. First, based on my personal experience, I actually did an internship when I did my PhD in WashU, not toward the end, but kind of the fourth year, kind of the middle stage of the third year, like middle stage of my PhD. And if possible, especially for those who are still not so sure which career pathway you want to pursue, I highly recommend that. And this should be applicable for international students. So I used pre completion OPT for my internship. So you need to double check whether we still have that type of policy. But what I did at that time is you basically used some of the OPT time, this, like kind of use it in advance. Like for example, usually you have 3 year STEM OPT afterwards. Now you are using 3 months ahead of time. Essentially that type of thing, and you take maybe 2 months to apply it, so you need to plan accordingly. And of course, you need to get buy-in from your PhD advisor to be able to do that. And I'm happy to coach you on how to prepare your conversation with your PI and also prepare your internship application. And I do want to also mention another great opportunity in WashU is called PWIT 314 is a paid part-time internship opportunity targeting middle stage PhD students, including international students, and is managed by the Center for Career Engagement, my office. And usually the application window opens in October time. And what it does is we recruit maybe more than 10 fellows each year, and we will pay them to do part-time internship during the summer time next year. And they will find a local startup to do internship, and they work about 10 hours per week for 10 weeks. And before the internship time, we'll provide a lot of training to help you identify the right employer, talk to the right person, and eventually secure an internship opportunity. And for that, just stay tuned with our PhD and postdoc newsletter, which was sent to your email box every Monday. There we'll post relevant information once the application window is open.
Yeah, I guess I just have a small thing to add. This is based on my F1 visa experience. I'm not sure if all PhD students have to be on F1 or they can be on a different visa. But during F1, you do get 1 year of CPT and then 1 year of OPT after you graduate. And then, of course, if your degree is a STEM degree, you get 2 more years of STEM OPT. So that 1 year of CPT that can surely be used during your for internships. That is, I think, nowadays more and more PIs are also accepting of people doing internships if that is something that you see your career like you want to go into the industry. So discuss this with your PI and of course your international office. But I think that's something students should do. And actually, I also wanted to point out that for postdocs, there are like a few, especially like if you can't find an internship during your PhD and you're thinking that maybe you want to do a postdoc position, which is in the industry, maybe there are like a few foundations. There is, I was just reading about it. There's Life Sciences Research Foundation. So they basically recruit postdocs and they match them with their partners, and you basically get an industry experience. But also, uh, I'm not like 100% sure about how the program works, but I think it's like you have to have a postdoc position in hand, and then you can partner with a industry company and then work with them as well. So uh, I think that was one resource I did find. Mhm.
Yeah, great. I just want to add one more thought because I feel like this is very important, and this is something that we are also trying to encourage our students to consider is to see hopefully doing more internship. And you don't want to really wait till the last year of your PhD to do internship because many internship programs requires you basically you are still in your PhD program after the internship is done, or maybe stay for one more year. So it's helpful to start to think about internship maybe really after you pass your qualifying exam. And you may not only just do one, you can do two, but the foundation is really you have been doing well in your thesis, right? Right? Make solid progress so that your PhD advisor may allow you to pursue other things during the summertime. Another point I want to mention here is for some companies, they have summer internship, but for some other company, they have the co-op, which could be like semester long, like spring semester or like fall semesters. And I know many of WashU could be open to that as well. So consider kind of different type of experiential learning opportunities. Um, yeah, and then last point, if you are considering to do an internship, really encourage you to apply earlier. As I said, for many companies, they actually have their kind of internship recruitment cycle, right? So they may already post some opportunity. Say, like if we want to hire an intern for next summer, they may already post a job in September time, October time, so that they can start to do interview later this year or early next year, and then leave you some time for you to apply for OPT, things like that. So start to apply as accordingly. But even if say you are already in March and you want to do an internship in the summertime, there could be still some opportunities. So my point here is really trying to be proactive in this process, actually do active search to find out what is possible and go from there.
Wow. That question really led us to a lot of different answers. Thank you. And I think people are also answering questions within and answering, helping people out with resources in the chat. Okay. I think we touched a little bit on this, the difference between academia and industry, and I can probably definitely get back to this. Let me see what some of our other questions were. Okay, we did have a lot of interest on visas, obviously. So, reframing a little bit of this question, obviously, I know that this is going to be different for when you had to do this versus how in the future people might have to do this. But about having a visa, but when you look for job opportunities, how do you come across or how do you figure out whether this job application will sponsor your visa or not? Is it more of a trial and error, or is there a little bit of guidelines that we could follow to find these easily, or maybe watch out for certain terms or something that can be helpful?
So I think one thing to look out for is when you're applying for a job, most of the times employer do mention whether they are going to accept people who require H-1B sponsorship or visa sponsorship, whether they're going to be accepting applications for such individuals. So that's usually mentioned at the bottom of the job description. If it is not mentioned, I would highly recommend that when you get on a call with the HR, usually the HR or like the hiring representative calls you first. It's always the best idea to talk about this upfront and ask them like, hey, I'm on a F1 visa right now or like a J1 visa, and I would require H1B sponsorship in the future. Is that something that the company is willing to do for me? Having that conversation upfront is really nice because that way you're not wasting your time or the employer's time. So definitely like be open and don't worry about asking. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you can talk to them ahead of time, that'd be great. But could you maybe share, like, how could we usually identify the contact person for that job opportunity?
So I think a lot of the companies, they do post like the hiring manager, the name of the hiring manager, you reach out to them. Or if a lot of times if you're applying and the company shows interest in you, they reach out to you directly. So that is the time that you can ask. Yeah, those are the two ways I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And is this LinkedIn or something else beyond?
Yeah.
I think on LinkedIn they do mention sometimes if you go onto the company website and go to their job page, they also mention like this is the department that where this job is for, and this is the name of the hiring manager. So you can reach out to them directly.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of like agree with you. The best way is really look at the job description. Many times they indicate clearly whether they sponsor or not. The challenge is for some companies, they do not mention this information at all, and then we have no idea, whether we want to proceed or not. And then, the next step is to see whether you can find somebody, either the HR hiring manager or another person in that company, so that you can follow up with this type of questions. Um, yeah, it could be helpful to get some clarity before you submit your applications. And another way is maybe utilize some of the database, for example, Glassdoor, just to see whether they have sponsored any other international scholar before, and that can help you identify more information. Yeah, some bigger companies are usually it really depends, but some bigger companies, they usually, they may have sponsored somebody else before, and if they have this type of tradition, then it is more likely to sponsor other students in future. One last point I might want to make here is, um, even though they say they do not sponsor, sometimes when you have a conversation with the hiring manager, you may be able to influence, especially for some smaller companies. They think doing H-1B sponsorship or green card sponsorship is a very complicated thing. They may not want to touch it, but if they really like your expertise and really want to bring you as a team member, they may reconsider. In reality, this process is not that difficult. I know in my former, when I worked in my former startup company, it's a very small startup company, but we are able to sponsor international students, not only for H-1B, but also for green card. So the process is not as complicated as many employers think. So that's why our employer engagement team at the Center for Career Engagement, they are also trying to do some kind of like change of management work here to educate them. This is not that complicated.
Yeah, that actually also reminds me of this time when I was given a job offer by one of the companies, and they had this uh, like a requirement in the job that they would sponsor for my like green card, but they would require me to stay in the company and work for 2 more years after I receive my green card, which if you know about the green card process was slightly, I mean, it was a very I don't have the right word for it, but it was something way too much to ask because uh, being an Indian citizen, the time it takes to get a green card based on employer-based sponsorship, I would have probably received the green card in the next century. And then they wanted me to stay for 2 more years after that. So I discussed this with their HR, and then it like clarified that this statement is not appropriate, and like you cannot ask of this from me. And it was surprising to me that uh, their like lawyers or immigration attorneys had not caught this mistake. And thankfully, with because of that conversation, they were able to change the rules within their company. So I would truly encourage, like, if you ever get a chance, always review your job offer very carefully and make sure that it aligns with what your timeline is based on immigration, and it's not something like they're asking too much of from you.
Just one more thought here is I know LinkedIn probably don't have kind of a filtering to see whether the company, the employers provide sponsorship. I know, for example, Handshake, they do have a filtering section where you can only select those who are willing to sponsor. That's one thing. Another tool is um, the Handshake. I'm not sure whether you all have access to Handshake, but Handshake is a great platform where you can search for example, internship opportunity and also some full-time job opportunities. But currently, we do not recommend you use it as the major search platform. For you, we still recommend many other search platforms such as LinkedIn and others, but it's a useful tool for you to have. A second tool here I want to introduce is Going Global. This is a tool that will should subscribe it for you, and it gives you a lot of career opportunities over there, especially international career opportunities. And there, they may also have they also indicate whether whether they require H-1B visa, OBT, things like that. So you can do some filtering over there that can help your job search process a little bit easier.
Speaking of these job search tools, there are a few more that I probably wanted to bring up. So one is actually from Science itself. So Science Magazine, they have their science career page that you can use to narrow down jobs, postdoc positions, or internship positions in the industry. The second one is actually Job Archive. So let me also put this in the chat so that everyone can see it. Uh, so it's like bioarchive, but instead job archive. This is another job board that you can use for searching your postdoc positions, specifically industry-related positions. And one more that I was thinking of was, yeah, there's a page called Biopharm Guy. So this page I really like because they keep like a very continuous database of all of the positions, all of the companies that are in and around United States. I think they have a database for companies outside of the United States as well. And they very regularly update the job board, and you can filter by locations. Like if you want to look for jobs in a particular location, you can use this website to figure out if they have any positions. And then obviously there are like some regional job boards as well. So like Massachusetts has their own Mass Bio page. So there you can find jobs and internships. And I think for Bay Area there was oh yes, California Life Sciences. So that is another page. But this is more regional.
Yeah, this is great. I think I haven't heard some of those, so we'll make sure to include some of those in our search platform database. And I think those sounds like a great opportunity for those students who are in the bio or life science or pharma area. And for our international students or postdoc here, some of them may come from other fields. So in the link here, I posted a link about some other search platforms we recommended to students. And you can see there is a long list over there. And again, this is not comprehensive, right? The point I think we're trying to make here is really be proactive in the search. There are a lot of opportunities out there. We just need to really spend time to do the search, talk to other people, to find out some of the resources. And hopefully that can really help us understand what are some of the opportunities out there.
Yes, thank you. Oh, I think very information loaded and I love it. I think I wanted to, oh, was there somebody else? Is there an echo or is that just me? I'm hearing like two sounds. Maybe that's me. Okay. I just wanted to go back to one question that Garvin asked in the chat that inspired from Shaurya's description of business aspect of science and industry. How much did you or your colleagues think about commercial slash business aspect of your project like as employees? I think that was the question. Mhm. And everybody in the chat, please feel free to also ask questions in person. If you want to talk directly, that's also an option. But yes.
So based on, I would say the short answer is not much, because that is not your role in a company. They usually, companies have their own like larger, the business and commercial side of like the department that handle all of this. And a lot of times, even for like smaller companies, these departments don't even exist because they probably don't have a commercial product yet, or they're not like, the if you're thinking about just like the money side of it, that's more the like the duty of, for a CFO or his department. But in larger companies, because uh, you're more focused on like research and you're more on the discovery side of things, you don't really get to participate in the commercial or like the business decisions of the company. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to also offer some additional thoughts on this question. So I think a couple of things, right? I think, for example, really dependent on your role. For example, if you work as a research associate or technician or some other type of role, then you just do your job and you may not really need to think too much about kind of the business side or commercial side. You may not have opportunity to get involved in that. As you said, it's not your role. Um, and however, as you develop your career, and for PhDs, for example, maybe some of the entry position for you to have is like scientist, and for that part, you still don't have to do too much with the commercial or business side, but you get to know a little bit more. And for say later you become a manager, a team lead, a director, you will have more and more things to do with commercial and business side because the company is actually working as a one company. And from the early innovation to down the road to commercial, the strategy needs to be consistent with each other. And many times we started to work on this project is because there is a commercial needs. So everything has to be aligned. So for that, again, really dependent on your role. And what I want to suggest our students to what you can equip now to prepare for your future career is right now, when you're trained as a PhD or postdoc, you can already start to have some business acumen and also continue to build that acumen in your future career. And that is very important because for as PhD and postdoc, we are really strong in our critical thinking, our science, our presentation skill. But sometimes what we lack is business acumen. So to gain that acumen and insights, what I recommend, for example, is in WashU, the Center for Career Engagement, we do have a business career community and they provide a tons of resources for you to help you understand some parts about accounting and finance, some parts about, for example, consulting. What is that about? How to work with clients, how to make budget, things like that. You can learn a little bit from there. And also, LinkedIn Learning is a great platform. There, you can learn a lot of things about, for example, business 101, biotech 101, to help you gain more training and understanding about the field. And again, continue to learn in your career. Yeah, so those are some of the additional things I want to add here.
It's amazing that WashU has all of these resources and that students can use. I would like highly encourage anyone who, if this is something that you want to go into, business administration for biotech companies, I would highly recommend that you start now.
Yeah. And I envision many of our PhD and postdoc down in your career, you can be the head of science in that department, right? So sooner or later, you will be dealing with a lot about commercial and business. And of course, you can learn a lot from your job. But if you can already start to gain some basic understanding in your current training experience, that will really put you in an advantageous position.
Yes. All right. Thank you for that. And what about this question right on the screen? I know we've touched on this, but maybe focusing more on challenges now.
Mm, I guess, I mean, it does raise a good point because um, it's something that I have also done in when I was as a graduate, came here as a master's student. You know, you're in a new country and it's challenging to make friends, interact with new people, or like you don't know where to begin when it comes to networking. I would say the best thing to do is uh, be your own advocate. So, however, like small or big thing you've done, speak up, talk to people. That's the most important thing. Um, when it comes to like uh, presenting your work at meetings or talking to people, if you get an opportunity to go to networking events, maybe just like have an aim of talking to one or two people who you find have similar interests as your work, and try to remain in connection with them. So the whole idea here is that you want to have your network built before you actually need it. So I would say uh, when it comes to job search, a lot of people think about networking at that time. So that is not the place to begin. So if you are able to start beforehand, uh, in the way that I just said, I think it really helps because um, I have definitely noticed that when companies hire, they look for referrals. In fact, companies have internal referral programs as well, which incentivizes employees to bring in connections if they know anyone, and the employees get a small sum for bringing in an employee. So that really, really helps. So if you already know someone in that company, the chances of you maybe getting an interview call increase. It does not guarantee getting the job, but you may at least get an interview call. And another thing I would suggest is uh, even though, suppose you find a job in a company and you're like, I don't know anyone here. Try and reach out to the people already working in that company. You can easily find this information on LinkedIn. Uh, People call this cold calling. So you just like send a message and be like, hey, I'm really interested in this position. I've worked in this area, and I think that I would be a really good fit. Would you be open to referring me for this job? More often than not, people are very helpful and they'll be like, hey, maybe I can connect you with the hiring manager directly and you can talk to this person.
Mhm.
So don't be afraid to do that. It's very simple, it's just a message, and it can go a long way. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Fully agree with you. Yeah. And I was thinking kind of some of the analogy I want to say, is I know many of our graduate students, PhD and postdoc, you are very good with your project skills. What you want to really enhance and pay attention to is your people skills. And especially for us international students, right, coming from a different culture, speaking a different language, this can be challenging. So we have to be really intentional. And in our field, sometimes we see PhD students are working in an island, like PhD island.
Mhm.
And for PhD international students, it is like an island of an island. So sometimes we really enjoy the type of work we are doing, but we lose connection to the outside of the world sometimes. So in this sense, really dedicate a little bit more time outside of research, kind of still related to the research, but kind of interact with people. That is very, very essential, including like advocate yourself, networking with others. Just pay attention how much time you spend with people every day, and you may want to intentionally increase that a little bit because this is going to really enhance your people skills, your communication, your emotional intelligence, your networking skill, your relationship, your influencing skills, collaboration skills. Those are a lot of things that different employers are looking for in addition to your project skills.
Awesome. Okay. I loved a lot of those anecdotes and analogies there. So I'm going to move on to this last question, but wait a minute. Let me just check the. Okay, yeah. Everybody's thanking for the very insightful answers, truly. And I think we did talk about internships. So yeah. What else? Let me look at some other questions. Before I find one other question, do you have any sort of concluding remarks that you'd like to share? I know you've already been telling us, informing us, educating us, but is there anything else?
Do you like to share first?
Oh God, I don't know where to begin. Like, there's like I feel like even after so many years in the industry, there's always something new to learn. And I guess that goes for any field that you're working in. But uh, I guess I would say that, one thing that really helped me in my time in the industry and learning or doing whatever I wanted to do was I believed in not saying no to any opportunity that came my way. I think that is very important. Uh, that is another way that you can really expand your skill set. You can work with different kinds of people, and it just helps you try newer things if that is something that you're really interested in. Because I realize like people who've never had any experience outside of academia, they're working a lot on their science and they're absolutely brilliant. But when you don't know anything about what else is happening, you kind of get siloed. So especially like in the industry, it's so important to understand how everything is coming together because your job can be very isolating in the sense that um, you're probably just going in doing your work every single day. But if you don't maintain that like outside perspective, you won't really know how things are working, what is it that other people are contributing. And I think that's super important to learn and understand. Like,
Mhm.
I guess that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess what I want to share is kind of two words. One is really be proactive. Second is really be open. So what I mean by proactive is, I'm not sure about you. I guess many of you may share the same thing as I did. I said like when I worked as a PhD, I thought maybe publishing good papers, um, generating good data should be sufficient. I didn't realize the importance of professional development. In fact, the only time I used career service is the time when I was about to graduate. I asked them to help with my resume. Nowadays, I work in this role. I can let you know we provide so many different opportunities and resources to you. So engage with us and be proactive is, you know, you really need to have a combination of your performance and also your image, your exposure, right? I think I told some of our students about the PIE theory. PIE, P stands for performance, I image, E exposure. I trust you can do very well in your performance. I want you to really also spend a little bit more time to think about image, what type of reputation you have, how do you show up in front of others, and your exposure, how many people you know, how many people know other people know you, things like that. So, and to do that, you really need to be proactive and dedicate time for that type of work. What I have been suggesting is maybe spend 10 to 20% of your time on career and professional development. The other 80-90% time you work on your research or delivering your performance or business goals. So only by allocating time, even though the time ratio is different, they are equally strategically important. So really spend that time, be proactive because only you can drive your career. That's the part you can control. And the second part is be open, is I think you also brought up that opportunity. We may come with the idea, okay, I want to become a faculty, or I may want to work in this company. But in reality is things are very dynamic. There are many different opportunities. So really be open to the opportunities that are presenting to you, and also be open to try different things. Because with our training, we actually gained a lot of hard skills and also transferable skills that allows us to do many different things. I never thought I'm going to become a career coach, but now here I am. I was not trained as a career coach, but with all the transferable skills, I am able to do that job. So similarly, there are just so many different pathways that are presenting to you. Be open to explore. Um, and especially nowadays, I think with the funding agent situation, immigration situations, sometimes things may not go as you're planned. So in that case, be flexible, be open to explore other opportunities. And there are multiple paths that can achieve the same ultimate goal. So yeah, so really be proactive and be open and enjoy this journey.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, we are only like a minute over time, but thank you, given us such great insights into all of these different questions and different aspects of job search for international students. I think we spoke a lot about small, large pharmaceutical companies, CPT, OPT, all the internships opportunities. And I think I loved the island within an island analogy. That makes a lot of sense. And I think also taking what Shoria said about like be your own advocate and don't fail to do that. Don't say no, because I think we all need to put ourselves out there. So I hope you all got valuable insight, lots of resources from them. And thank you so much for our panelists for being here and answering and giving us this time. And May is right here at WashU, so I hope all of you definitely reach out to her. And Sharia, maybe people can
Yeah,
reach out to
I
you.
I'm absolutely I'm open. Like, send me a LinkedIn request. Happy to connect with anyone. And yeah, if
Yeah,
there's anything I can help with, I'd be more than happy to. And again, thank you so much for having
thank
me over
you.
here. Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you
Yeah,
for inviting
great
me
to
again.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.